He walked into the bank with confidence. Clean shirt, steady hands, a paycheck he had worked hard to earn. He wasn't asking for a loan. He wasn't causing a scene. He just wanted to make a deposit. But within minutes, the air shifted. Whispers circled. Eyes followed him. A quiet phone call was made behind the counter. And before he could understand what was happening, the bank manager had already decided who he was. Not a customer, not a young man building his future. A threat. The police were on their way. Humiliation spread faster than fear. Every second stretched longer than the last as strangers stared, silently agreeing with a judgment no one bothered to question. Then the front doors opened, and everything changed. Because the one person who walked in next was the last person anyone in that bank expected to see. The question isn't just why the police were called. It's why they assumed he didn't belong in the first place. He was 22, disciplined, and determined to build something bigger than the neighborhood he grew up in. Every morning started before sunrise, classes in the afternoon, a part-time job in the evenings. He carried himself with quiet focus, the kind that comes from knowing no one is going to hand you anything. Money wasn't something he played with, it was something he respected. Every dollar had a purpose. Tuition, books, savings, a future he was carefully constructing piece by piece. That afternoon, he walked into the bank just like he had done before. Same branch, same polished floors, same long counter lined with tellers trained to smile. He wore simple clothes, nothing flashy, just a young man handling his business. But there's a certain look people give when they think you don't belong. A pause that lingers too long. A second glance that feels heavier than it should. He felt it almost immediately. The teller's smile tightened. Questions came faster than usual. Identification was examined longer than necessary. A manager appeared from a glass office in the back, watching closely, too closely. He told himself not to overthink it. Maybe it was procedure. Maybe it was nothing. But the atmosphere kept shifting. And by the time he realized this wasn't just a routine transaction, a quiet decision had already been made about him. One that had nothing to do with the check in his hand, and everything to do with the skin he was in. What happened next would turn an ordinary afternoon into something no one in that bank would ever forget. The bank manager didn't approach him with a smile. He approached with suspicion. From behind the glass office, he watched the young man like he was studying a problem that needed to be removed. The teller's voice shifted, less friendly now, more cautious. The check was held up to the light, typed on, examined again. A quiet excuse was made. They just needed to verify something. Minutes passed. Customers who walked in after him were helped first. Side glances turned into open stares. A woman near the counter clutched her purse a little tighter. A man in line shook his head, as if he had already decided how this would end. The young man felt it all, the weight of assumption pressing down on him. He kept his posture calm, his voice steady, hands visible on the counter. He had been taught early how to survive moments like this. Stay polite, stay still, don't give them a reason. But he had done nothing wrong. From across the lobby, the manager picked up the phone. The call was quiet, quick, deliberate. When he returned, his tone had hardened. The check was suspicious. The account needed further review. Policies had to be followed, words carefully chosen to sound professional, but the message underneath was clear. You don't belong here. He offered additional ID, explained where he worked, explained that this was his paycheck, the same company he'd worked for all year. His voice never rose. His expression never cracked. It didn't matter. The manager had already made his decision. And then someone near the entrance noticed the patrol car pulling into the parking lot. The room shifted instantly. Whispers spread like electricity. Phone subtly lifted. A mother pulled her child closer. No one asked what crime had been committed. No one questioned why a routine deposit required police intervention. They just watched. The doors opened. 2 officers stepped inside, scanning the room before their eyes locked onto him. The only black man standing at the counter. His heart pounded, so loudly he was sure everyone could hear it. He thought about how quickly situations like this spiraled, how a misunderstanding could turn into a headline, how one wrong movement could change everything. The officers approached slowly, hands resting near their belts. The manager pointed. In that moment, humiliation burned hotter than fear. He wasn't being treated like a customer. He was being displayed like a suspect. The officer asked him to step away from the counter. Every eye in the bank followed him as he took a single step back. One step that felt like falling off a cliff. The officer's hand closed around his wrist. Cold, firm, public. He didn't resist. He didn't argue. He just stood there, heart pounding, as the second officer moved closer. The entire bank had fallen silent now. No whispers, no shuffling, just the sound of his breathing and the faint crackle of a police radio. The manager stood a few feet away, arms crossed, certain he had done the right thing. The officer began asking questions. Sharp clipped, suspicious. Where did the check come from? Why was it so large? Why was he nervous? Nervous, as if anyone wouldn't be. His explanation barely seemed to register. The check was still in the manager's hand like evidence. Customers were recording openly now. In their videos, he would look like every stereotype they had already decided he was. And then, the front doors swung open with force. He turned his head. A woman stepped inside, composed but commanding, her presence cutting through the tension like a blade. Her eyes scanned the scene, the officers, the manager, her son being held at the center of it all. Everything about her expression changed in an instant. She walked forward with purpose, heels striking the floor in steady rhythm. Not panicked, not confused, certain. The officers hesitated as she approached. The manager straightened, suddenly unsure. This wasn't just any woman walking into the bank. This was the regional director overseeing multiple branches. And this was her son. The silence that followed felt heavier than the accusation that had filled the room moments earlier. The officer slowly released his grip. For the first time since this began, it wasn't the young man who felt exposed. It was the bank manager. His confidence unraveled faster than the moment had escalated. Policies were suddenly rechecked. Apologies stumbled out, thin and fragile. The officers stepped back, their posture softening as the truth became undeniable. The check was verified within minutes. The account confirmed. The emergency that had justified humiliation vanished like it had never existed. But the damage didn't disappear with it. He stood there, wrists still cold from the officer's grip, dignity bruised in front of a room full of strangers. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't broken a rule. He had done everything right. And it still wasn't enough. His mother handled the situation swiftly. Internal reports, immediate consequences, a review of procedures. The manager who had been so certain now faced questions of his own. Yet as they walked out of the bank together, something heavier followed them. Because this wasn't just about one branch, or one manager, or one humiliating afternoon. It was about how quickly suspicion replaces innocence when bias fills in the blanks. How easily a young black man conducting ordinary business can be seen as a threat. How many others don't have someone powerful walking through those doors at the exact right moment. He deposited his check that day, but what he carried home was a reminder that success doesn't shield you from prejudice. That respect is still conditional for some. That procedure can feel a lot like profiling. The question isn't whether the apology was enough. The question is how many quiet phone calls are still being made in rooms just like that, where someone decides who belongs and who doesn't. And if we stay silent, who will be next?